Archives of Prasar Bharati presents the timeless treasure of golden era.
Hello and welcome to Living on the Edge. This week we travel to a city where for generations garbage and sewage has been recycled in a most innovative way. Not only does recycling support hundreds of families, but it's also done without the use of expensive treatment plants. Here's Priya Somaya with a rare success story from Calcutta.
Rarely does one wonder where all this garbage and sewage water generated is dumped, or what eventually happens to all this waste. The fact is that little is done to it. It just piles up at ever-growing garbage dumps, and sewage water flows into nearby rivers, reducing them to dirty nalas. And Calcutta is no exception. City municipalities have to battle with growing volumes of waste generated. But what most people, even Calcutta's residents, are unaware of is a quiet and efficient waste disposal system at work at the fringe of the city. To understand how it works, Living on the Edge decided to follow one of the main sewage lines to see just where it goes. Our journey begins at this massive garbage dump, which we were told is nearly 100 years old. Every day, hundreds of rag pickers gather here to sort and collect waste. Plastic, metal and paper are carried away to be resold, leaving behind large amounts of decomposing organic waste, which is of little use one would think. But barely half a kilometer ahead, we came across a huge expanse of vegetable plots. A closer look revealed that garbage from the dump was being used as fertilizer by vegetable farmers, and that sewage water, after being treated by natural bacterial processes, was used to irrigate the fields. In effect, what is happening is that garbage and sewage that are otherwise a bane for urban planners are gradually being recycled at no extra cost. Moreover, these farms supply about 1/3 of the city's requirement of 150 tons of vegetables every day, and just supplying these vegetables supports hundreds of families. But this is not all. Traveling further, our camera team found that the sewage line emptied itself into Calcutta's wetlands. Hardly a suitable destination, you might think, but it is here that over 1/3 of the city's sewage is treated. Over 250 million litres flow in here daily to be neutralized by nature at virtually no cost. Sewage water is being used, believe it or not, to breed fish. It is a system that has developed over generations. Sewage lines coming in from the city systematically crisscross these fish farms. At the mouth of each fishery, several sieves are set up to separate any solid matter that might be present. The rest drains through. Before it finally flows into the breeding ponds, the sewage water is made to pass through large patches of water hyacinth. This seems strange because water hyacinth is a weed which clogs up lakes and ponds, cutting off sunlight for aquatic species. But as these fishermen have discovered, hyacinth also absorbs harmful heavy metals like lead, chromium and iron that might be present in the effluent water. Once cleansed of these chemicals, sewage water consisting mainly of organic waste is let out into the ponds and becomes rich nutrition for fish. So nutritious is this water that fishermen believe that if clean water is substituted, the fish won't breed unless expensive fish food is also introduced. And this is not something fishermen have discovered recently. Instead, it's a process that has evolved by working closely with nature over time. Today, over 8,000 tons of fish are caught each year in the wetlands. The commercial advantages notwithstanding, the most important function the wetlands and vegetable farms accomplish is the dramatic reduction of ground and river water pollution.
एकदम काला गंदा पानी लेता है, उसका अंदर में कचरा जितना रहता है सब मछली खा लेता है। मछली खाने के बाद में ये पानी अब पी सकता है, ये पानी यूजेबल हो गया। ये पानी निकलता है, हम लोग आउट कैनल जो है उसमें हम फेंक देते हैं, वो पानी चला जाता है रिवर में जाके वो पानी गिरने के बाद में रिवर पॉल्यूशन नहीं होता है।
And yet, despite the crucial role the wetlands play in recycling, attempts are being made to destroy these water bodies and reclaim the land for development activity. Already, the wetland has been reduced to half its size by land reclamation and today cover an area of only 12,000 acres. The greatest threat comes from developers who want to build a World Trade Center here. Clearance for this project will not only destroy a large part of the remaining wetland, but provide a precedence for further development in the area, which will signal doom.
There are all new development projects. Whenever one reads about new industry coming in, they want to come here. There are hotel chains, the World Trade Center. There are all kinds of plans, film institutes. This is the last open space, and so there's a real run to come to this area.
And this could have disastrous consequences not just for the wetland, but for the entire recycling process that it supports.
पॉल्यूशन को तो फर्क से जरूर पड़ेगा, क्या है कि ये जो पानी जो है काला पानी, कलकत्ता का जो काला पानी है वो कहाँ जाएगा? वो तो रिवर में गिरेगा।
These wetlands are the least cost, if not no cost, sewage treatment facility to the city of Calcutta. If the decision makers are interested to get rid of these wetlands, they will have to bring a new sewage treatment plant whose cost would be absolutely explosive.
At present, the case lies with the High Court because a public interest litigation was filed by a voluntary group opposing the sanctioning of over 200 acres for the development of the World Trade Center. An earlier court ruling recognized the importance of these wetlands, and by holding that no development could take place on these 12,000 acres of wetland with the exception of the World Trade Center. But what environmentalists oppose today is the size of the area for the center builders have demanded. The verdict is crucial because wetlands all over India and the world are coming under serious threat and face complete destruction. Sadly, wetlands are perceived by most as wasteland, though they actually constitute entire ecosystems. And it's not just for the sake of conservation that environmentalists are fighting against destruction, but because they are vital for flood control and for recharging groundwater. Tucked away in the vast expanse of the wetland is this temple to the goddess Van Bibi. She is believed to be the protector of nature and all its creatures. And yet, fishermen who often come here to pray feel that even the goddess will not be able to protect their wetlands from development activity. The consequences of destruction will be borne by all Calcutta citizens. Millions of litres of sewage that is now being productively used will flow untreated into the river. Landfills will overflow with garbage, and hundreds of families dependent on this system will be left impoverished and vulnerable. And a unique waste recycling mechanism will be lost.
Isn't it shocking that 1 out of 8 persons who die because of tobacco-related diseases induced by the cigarette have never ever smoked one in their lives. 1 out of 8. So the next time you're in the company of somebody who's smoking, make sure he or she stops while you're there. Don't let anyone puff your life away. Remember, every action of yours counts.
Still to come, why this brew is not as safe as it looks and how nature reclaimed the Mahim Creek in Bombay. But first, an update.
Episode 39, July 1995, Child Labour. Living on the Edge focuses on the problem of child labour. It is an open secret that child labour laws are being regularly flouted by several industries in India. January 1, 1996. Hundreds of children freed from bonded labour demonstrate in front of the Labour Ministry in Delhi to initiate steps to protect the rights of the child. January 1996. Attempts to introduce a single certificate for carpets free of child labour failed to convince a variety of groups at the World Trade Fair for carpets in Hanover, Germany. Back home, child labour is more than a desperate reality. February 1996. The Supreme Court directs the centre to state the steps being taken to curb child labour. However, no concrete policy has been formulated in this direction to date. Verdict: just stopping child labour will not help. Unless there are other avenues available, the number of children on the street will increase without any betterment in their condition.
Chiranjeev Bezborua wants us to do a story on the use and selling of drugs without proper prescriptions. Nandini Rajwade takes a look at a drug available in virtually every store that gives you a jump start each morning, helps you keep awake during exams, and makes you sober when you want to be.
Can you guess what is being spoken about here?
A bit disgusting.
There's something which is missing in my day.
No bit. Next to impossible. Satisfaction.
History weaves an interesting tale about the origins of this substance. Many moons ago, they say, an Ethiopian shepherd boy saw his goats dancing to the tune of the taste of some berries. Suspicious of the berries, he took them to a priest who threw them into a fire, declaring them to be evil. An exotic aroma filled the air, and coffee was born. Today, this exotic aroma with that of tea fills the air on India's roads, in homes, offices, and at social gatherings. It is a beverage savoured by people of all classes all over the world and has been responsible for initiating many established social practices. In fact, the coffee house syndrome, if you could call it that, started in the 13th century in Arabia and filtered down to our society. Today, it is a widely used platform where politicians, traders, and students alike gather to express views and opinions as they satisfy their taste buds. But what is it about beverages like coffee, cocoa, and tea that makes you dependent on them? A compound found naturally in coffee, cocoa seeds, and tea leaves, caffeine is said to be addictive by nature. Records of caffeine use go back over 1600 years, and because of its high prevalence and use, it has been identified as a drug of abuse. Drugs of abuse have two major characteristics. They have adverse side effects, having the capacity to harm the individual, and they are addictive.
Caffeine essentially is a drug. You can think of it as a mild drug compared to alcohol or more serious drugs. So it has an effect on the human system, particularly human brain. It affects the nervous system. Initially it gives some sort of a knockout effect. So one feels sort of a pep talk, but later on it phases out and then it gets into sort of a withdrawal syndromes.
People who suffer from caffeineism have a history of consuming a lot of products containing caffeine. In fact, 200 milligrams of caffeine or about 2 cups of coffee per day is all it takes to have an effect on your health. As a result, most people consume enough caffeine each day to produce symptoms of caffeineism without realizing it. So why don't you do a checklist? Some of the commonly used products which contain caffeine are coffee, tea, cocoa, chocolate, cola, and anisin.
Though some experts argue that caffeine isn't so harmful as it is made out to be, studies conducted reveal it is a stimulant which adversely affects the central nervous system.
You wouldn't say that this caffeine content in coffee doesn't produce any ill health to the human system?
No, definitely not. Main effect is on the brain. It affects the central nervous system. So since the central nervous system controls the entire body, any damage that might eventually happen to the CNS on a long-term basis could cause a serious nervous disorder in the entire human body.
I have seen in my experience of spanning over 30 years now, that many people who for the first time came, especially young people, who for the first time came with missing beats, it so happened that they took coffee for the first time.
Children who consume 6 cans of cola per day or over 25 small bars of chocolate run the same risk of caffeineism due to their lower body weight. If affected, they become jumpy and speak faster than normal. Adults who consume the same amount of caffeine, more than 2 to 3 cups of coffee or tea per day, have more subjective reactions such as mood changes. Quantities which can affect a person vary from individual to individual. So having a friend who can consume lots of coffee or cola without negative effects doesn't really mean you can do likewise. Your body is different and could be telling you something. If you are an avid coffee, cocoa or tea drinker and experience any of the following symptoms, you may be hooked. Withdrawal signs include headache, lethargy, irritability, restlessness, drowsiness, and disinclination to work. These symptoms normally come on 18 hours after your last dose of caffeine. And yet, any of us could argue about how we feel perkier after our morning cup, how it helps to keep awake for long hours, and how black coffee speeds up the sobering up process. There are answers to that too. Doctors claim that physically you may feel more alert, but your senses will be dulled, leaving you unproductive.
If you continuously go on whipping a horse, it will get tired and it will not work. So the same thing is about tea or coffee. Yes, a cup or two is all right. It does stimulate your central nervous system. But if you take more, you will be awake, but you will not be able to concentrate that much.
In the West, consumer and health awareness have prompted the marketing of decaffeinated products, a process which reduces caffeine content. But in India, the need to do this is not felt at all.
Recent years, because of this increased health awareness and health products, many of these developed countries, they are switching over gradually to the beverages which contain less caffeine or no caffeine.
But if you're saying caffeine has no ill effect, then why should one opt for decaffeinated? Or should we, like in India, should we opt for decaffeinated?
Well,
though coffee producers might try and deny the ill effects of caffeine on human health, decaffeinated products might be a better idea than any of us might realize at present. Till then, the only way to reduce the amount of caffeine you consume each day is to regulate your consumption of this delightfully satisfying product.
Can't guess what we're talking about? Well, it's the original cattle of the sea, the turtle. Did you know that as sea scavengers, they can single-handedly cleanse our Ganges of all carcasses in no time? When not scrounging on mosquito-breeding water weeds, they can be seen perfecting 1200-meter deep sea dives, which are the deepest known for any air-breathing animal. With its extra strong shell, the turtle has outlived the dinosaur, and for 200 million years now, has been going to a breeding site to deliver its eggs only in the privacy of the night. Come sunrise, and they retreat into their shell, so to speak.
Till the late 60s, the Mahim Creek in Bombay was a mangrove forest, teeming with aquatic and bird life. Over time, it became a convenient dumping ground for Bombay's waste, and that's what it would probably always have been. But the Worldwide Fund for Nature, in collaboration with the Bombay municipality, has reclaimed the area and returned it to nature. Priya Somaya reports.
To most of us, cities are synonymous with chaotic traffic, ever-growing air and noise pollution, and a huge population. The serenity, detachment, and calm that communion with nature brings are hard to come by. And nowhere is this more apparent than in India's financial capital, Bombay, which to many is a concrete jungle devoid of greenery and trees. And yet most city plans include large green areas which trap carbon dioxide and increase the oxygen available in the air. London, for instance, has 2.8 hectares of open space for every 1,000 citizens. Delhi has 1.62 hectares. Bombay, astonishingly, has just 0.4 hectares for every 1,000 people. Bombay's congestion, coupled with tremendous pressure on land, has prevented the development of new green areas. But that hasn't stopped a group of far-sighted people from transforming a foul-smelling, overused garbage dump into a park for Bombay's citizens. Quietly, efficiently, and imaginatively, a collaboration between the Bombay Development Authority and the Worldwide Fund for Nature has resulted in the reclamation of over 200 acres of Mahim Creek. Once a massive dump for city sewage and untreated effluents, Mahim Creek is now a nature park.
What you're standing on is 15 feet of garbage. This was the Bombay's garbage dump and part of the reclamation of the creek, and we wanted to convert it into an open space because Bombay did need a nature break.
And what a break! Walking along this nature trail, one can hardly believe that below the surface lies 15 feet of city waste. What you see today is the result of a decade of hard work, and the going wasn't easy.
जो भी प्लास्टिक वगैरह डाला था ना, वो प्लास्टिक वगैरह हम लोग अभी भी उसको निकालते रहते हैं, और प्लास्टिक के जो डालने से जो हम लोगों को बहुत सारे लोग बोलते हैं कि ये तो गार्बेज का बना हुआ है, इसमें आपको कंपोस्ट मिल जाता है तो पौधे बहुत जल्दी उगने चाहिए, लेकिन ऐसा नहीं है। जो भी हमारे घरों से कप प्लेट्स या पेपर्स आता है, वो ज़मीन को, जो ज़मीन की उष्णता है उसको नीचे का नीचे रख देता है, ऊपर आने नहीं देता है। हम लोगों को जब प्लांट उसमें लगाते हैं तो उसके रूट्स जो है नीचे की तरफ न जाने के बजाय ऊपर को आने लगती हैं।
What most visitors are unaware of is that the Mahim Creek was once a lush coastal forest with 12-meter-high mangroves and over 50 species of local and migratory birds. Even flamingos were once spotted here, but pollution destroyed all that. Today, the creek is being painstakingly restored. Over 12,000 trees have already been planted.
यहाँ पर 182 स्पीसीज करीब हैं, और ये सब प्लांट जो हैं महाराष्ट्र के हैं। कुछ एक प्लांट जो हैं यूपी से आए हैं, कुछ प्लांट देहरादून से हम लोग मंगाए, कुछ सावंतवाड़ी से हैं, कुछ गुजरात में बलसाड़ वगैरह से लेके आए हैं।
And to encourage the use of natural remedies, the park has over 55 varieties of medicinal plants and a unique section with 27 trees, one for each astral sign. Future plans include programs involving school and college students in conservation measures. After all, a return to roots in Bombay will not only rekindle love for nature and provide a sanctuary for citizens seeking peace and quiet, but also sustain a unique experiment in urban conservation.
What survives equally well in the Arctic wastes and in the harsh desert sun, and what is sometimes called a mother-in-law's cushion? To find out, you have to watch our last story about a man and his not-so-common obsession.
We are visiting Chandigarh to meet Dr. Rajwade. He has a prickly green hobby, or shall we say a passion, a rather unusual one, and yet it is something any one of us could pick up with ease.
Why cactus? Well, why not, for one thing?
On that emphatic note, we started our tour of his landscape garden. It was here that the seeds of his first cactus were planted over a decade ago.
They can withstand temperatures of a great range of temperatures. That's the main thing. So that you could cultivate them in the Arctic as well as in the equator, in the tropics and anywhere. Something like about 250 to 300 species, varieties of cacti and succulents.
Cacti do not require too much looking after, but must be watered very carefully. Overwatering damages the plant permanently. Though Dr. Rajwade has won many trophies for his collection, the names of his plants still amuse him.
Some of the names are very fascinating. For instance, this little thorny, yellow thorny thing, the botanical name is Echinocactus grusoni, but the colloquial name for it is Mother-in-Law's Cushion.
We thought it best to beat a hasty retreat from that particular one. Cacti can take anywhere from 10 to 14 years to grow, but Dr. Rajwade is a patient man.
Suddenly out of these thorns, up comes a flower of fantastic color and shape. And they last very short time, but even so it's well worth the years looking after, I assure you. I enjoy being with them. If that is what you call love, then I love them.